structure by them. Okay, got it. Second is that, and third is understand what works well in those papers and to effectively convey their findings. And we have to literally do the critical appraisal of that result section and see how well they have written and how they have been able to communicate their message effectively. And the fourth and the easiest thing is, if you have done all these three aspects, then it will be easier to apply in your writing. So these are the first initial 4 steps you have to follow. And as we all know, we follow the classic IMRAD model. Go to the history. Actually, the first IMRAD model was first proposed, applied by Louis Pasteur back in 1876 when we rewrote the book Fermentation. And what they recommend is you follow the wine glass model. Introduction will be a little longer than material and method, and discussion and conclusion. It kind of follows the wine glass, and our method section and result section is here. So what this shows is that the result section should not be that elaborate if the target reader will be drowned in the information. So it should be written in a short but effective way so that they will go through your paper. So let's go to the general principle. This quote is relevant here by Albert Einstein. If you are out to describe the truth, leave elegance to the teller. You know, you have to, as I said earlier, you have to blend science and art together, but don't talk too much about the art. You know, you have to give science the preference, and then it has to be covered with cosmetic other things, which is an art. So what is the general formatting rule of a result section? First, simply state the findings with some explanation, but without interpretation. This is where I want to emphasize on. An early stage researcher usually writes the result and then at the same time tries to interpret the finding. For example, when we found a significant correlation between two variables never described before, we just state that, but we do not speculate about the reason for this correlation. That is left for discussion part. And next step is we describe the statistical test with result and p-value without describing every step of your analysis. Another thing we have noted while reviewing the manuscript is you don't write in detail the steps of statistical test. This is not required for our clinician. What we need to do is what test we applied. For example, if we applied the chi-square test, we just say that chi-square test result showed that the relationship between two variables was significant with a p-value of, for example, less than 0.0001. This is all we need to write. And this is also goes without saying that all result sections should be written in a past tense. And another rule of thumb in writing the result section is you don't write anything that needs citation. Result is what you found based on your research, not that what others found. So if you think that the result section, any statement you write needs a citation, that thing should probably not be there. So this is an example. This is a paper we wrote a year ago about the temporal delay in neurosurgical patient. And this is the result I'd like to show you. 35 patients were male, 33 patients were admitted to head injury. And this all has been, just point has been written here. And then we have written it in a past tense. This is just a simple example. Now we go to the specific rule. Those were the general rule. Specifically, what we write is we report on data collection, recruitment, and our participant. The first thing we write in the result section are how we gather the data, how many were excluded, how many were included, and what was the flow chart like. For example, if we are writing we are reporting on a randomized control trial, we follow the consort diagram here. If we are doing the observational study, we summarize the demographic and characteristic of the baseline characteristic of the study participants at the first information. And next, what we do is we do a systematic description of the main findings, highlighting the most relevant results. It is not important to report everything you found during the process of your research. No, it's not necessary. It should be revolving around what your objective was, what your research question was, and then systematically describe those main findings, highlighting the most relevant result. And third part is to describe other important secondary findings, such as secondary outcome or subgroup analysis. Sometimes, when you analyze the data, suddenly one subgroup analysis shows you a significant finding, then those things should also not be ignored, but because those could be of relevance to the fellow clinicians. So that we describe. So this is how it goes. Now let's talk about the non-textual elements, the visual elements. Use of visual elements such as tables, figures, charts, maps, etc. are very effective in communication. So those should be used as far as possible so that your message is beautifully displayed. It should be cited in the text and number in order, though it is so obvious to say, but when we review the paper, sometimes we have found that the table is there, the figure is there, but it is not mentioned in the text. It is a very simple thing, and this is obviously a very one of the things which you should never ignore. When people do the desk review, and if it is not there, then it runs the risk of being automatically rejected. And these are the stand-alone element. I'll describe those with the example also. But when you write a table or figure or map, they should be able to stand alone. The prospective readers should not refer back to the text about what this table or figure means. So they should be standing alone. There should be enough description about the table or figure. The legend should be there. The acronym should have the full form there, so all should be written there so that it stands alone. Now another slide dedicated to how we choose text or figure or table in a manuscript while writing the result section. So when we write text, if you can present your data clearly in a sentence or two, the text suffices. There is no need to use figure or table. That is just a waste of your resources. When do we use table? When we want to present information that has both words and number. If there are words and number in that data, it's better to use table. Another thing is, if we want to give the audience exact value, then table is better than a graph to get the point across. Graph just shows the pattern or trend, but table gives you the exact value. So this is where you have to use table. For figure to display trends, patterns, or relationship in a data, figure is beautiful. And the types of figure we use in our clinical practice are graphs, charts, and maps. I'll show that later. So this, I feel, is a wrong use of a visual, a graph. Pie chart. We are describing there are 50 patients, 24 are females, 26 are male, and there is no use of wasting a pie chart just to write that. That could have been just written in a sentence. Another important thing is the consistency when we write a result section. This is a very important aspect. So, for example, if the journal we intend to submit says that you follow the American English, you have to follow American. Or if it says British English, you have to follow that. That's why it is extremely important to read the information for contributor page before we submit the article to that journal. Another fonts, type, size, color, etc. You have to use same font throughout your manuscript, and so the same thing applies in the result section also. Size also matter. Color, if you are using the table or figure table, you have to use the same color, same design of the table. All these things matter. And numbers after decimal, this is also not very not talked about thing, but it is a very important because this gives you how careful you have been in writing your result. For example, if you in one area you have written 0.67, in another area you have written just 0.6, then another section you have written 0.678. It doesn't look good for the reviewer, and the reviewer will be very will have the tendency of not accepting your paper. Okay, how long should be a result section? It is largely set by the amount and the types of data to be reported and how big your results are. If you are reporting on the vaccine trial, then the result section tends to be very long. But if you are doing a simple retrospective study, looking at a particular 1 or 2 point, the length should be smaller. So there is no hard and fast rule. The length should be this much. But remember, brevity is a virtue. Everybody is busy in this world at this time. So be concise at all costs. And, reviewers are not paid. They are all volunteers. They are doing this as a part-time job. So if you are making it a very boring, very long result section, there's a chance that the reviewer will see it very superficially because it is so boring, and your chances of your article being really accepted becomes automatically small. In general, raw data should not be included in the main text unless the sample size is very small. For example, if we are reporting on a very rare disease of 10 cases, then probably it will be nice to include all those 10 cases. But if you are reviewing a paper including 100 patients, then you should not include the all 100 patients there. So don't use raw data. Just a simple example. And this was recommended by one of the Dr. Aruzo in 2014. And there is very little written on the literature. This is what I found in that article. So if you are writing a result section, 1,000 words is the most you could write. And it should not be more than 2 to 3 pages, 1.5 line spacing, font size 11, including tables and figure. And it should not be more than 9 paragraphs. You have so much information in the result section, it automatically makes your paper boring. So these are the general guidelines about the length. Let's go about the common errors which we have encountered over the years while reviewing the manuscript. Repeating background information or methods again. You have already said that information in your materials and method section, introduction section. Please do not repeat those information again in the result section. Go straight to the findings and describing the findings, including raw results. Again, I just said that in the previous slide, you don't need to present every single number and calculation here in the results section. You just write the synthesized version of those raw data. And sometimes if it is a very, high-end research or, randomized control trial, lot of risk and other things, or if your result is exceptionally well, it exceeds all the, results so far published, then the journal editor might ask you to provide your raw data for the proof. In that context, you can add those raw data in the supplementary material in the appendix. Another thing we have found is endless repetition of data. You have said that again, you will say that again also in the last part of your paragraph, you write the same thing. That makes your result section very, very boring. Please do not do that. And another thing is including the information in both text and tables and figure. This is also one of the very frequently encountered, I would not say mistake, but one of the few errors we have found. If you have written already in the text, there is no point saying the same thing again in table or figure. Either write in table or figure or write in text. But it's up to you what you want to, which form of format of expression you will use. But it is allowable to write the very relevant thing which you found in the table. For example, one of the tables shows that the disease in question is very common in 20 to 30 years of age. Then you can write that in the text that okay, as shown in the table, the commonest age involved is 20 to 30 years. That kind of highlighting is allowed, but do not repeat the information both in the table and figure. Another thing is results and method section do not match. This also we have encountered very commonly. You in the method section, you said that you will do this and that, but in the result, it's completely different. So this is again a big no-no. Ignoring negative result. Every result you found by your meticulous research matters, whether it's a negative result, it's a positive, no problem. Because not reporting negative result is considered unethical also. And the reviewer also would like to see the honest reporting of the report, not the selective reporting of your results. So you have to write the negative result, even if you think that the one type of treatment is superior to another. but unfortunately your p-value doesn't come out to be significant. No problem, it's not the end of the world, but still you write that. That will be useful to the science. This is another thing. And do not provide data that is not critical to answering the research question. Everything revolves around the research question, and then you while gathering the result, you gathering the data, you may have come across with many information which is not relevant to your research question. Please do not write that in the result section. Discussing or interpreting the result. This also I have already mentioned before. So in the result section, just write what we have, what we have found. The interpretation is left to the discussion part. But you have to look at read the instruction for contribution page of your target journal. If they say that you combine the result and discussion in one section, then it's okay to write that. But the majority of the journal do not encourage you to write the discussion and the result in one section. These are errors in figures and tables I have listed here. Sometimes you write too many figures or too many tables. If your every page is filled with figure and table, it's a big no. The different journals have different recommendations, but the general rule of thumb is one page should have either one table or one figure, because it will be like more skeleton if you have all figures and table. And if one article has only text, then it automatically becomes boring to read also. So you should have at least one or two table or figure in your original article, but not having any figure or table or having too many is both ways not acceptable. Again, using both tables and figure, just use one data visualization technique. Either use table or figure, not both. Another error we have seen is very complex tables or figure. If the tables are very hard to decipher, too much information, or figure is also very cluttered, then it will not go well with the reviewer. Again, self-notwithstanding, I have mentioned that, and including tables and figure that are not mentioned in the text. The table or figure just comes up and it's not mentioned in the text. It should not be done. This is also important, using emotive words to describe the significance of the result, like interestingly, unfortunately, curiously. These things are for the novel writer, not for us. We are scientists, we write facts. So all these emotional words should not be written in the result section. And use of passive voice, it should not be used because it weakens the power of the language. It shows that the writer is not very confident of what he has written. That's the one disadvantage. Another disadvantage is, high impact journals have a very strict word limit. If you use passive voice, you automatically increase the number of words to express the same thing. So always recommended to use the active voice. Use of percentage is also another thing I like to say here, that if the sample size is less than 20, you do not use percentage, because that will distort the real value of your paper. If you have 5 patients and you have one patient with some unusual finding, you say it's a 20% of our patient had this. It just doesn't give the right meaning. So less than 20, do not use it. And this also is very common, not spelling out number at the beginning of the sentence. And then another is, if you are describing in your result section any number less than 10, it is recommended to spell out the exact number rather than writing the number. Okay. Then about submission. So now you have drafted your result section very well. There are some of the things you have to consider before you submit your article finding. Check the guidelines of your target journal and read articles that it has published in similar topics to your study, and then apply the requirement of the journal to which you are submitting your work, and then you submit. So this is my concluding slide. The size of your audience doesn't matter, and keep up the good work. Even if your article, very few articles are read by because so many journals are there in Nepal also, outside also. But even if they don't read, very few read, but still you write produce a very good article with a good result section, eventually it will give happiness to you. Thank you for your patient hearing. This is my concluding slide, Dr. Amit, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mohan sir. Those were very pertinent tips, and then I hope that it will be very fruitful for all of us. Sir, if you can stop sharing your screen, and I would request if the faculties have any question to Mohan sir, because I don't see any question pouring into the chat box yet. But sir, Mohan sir, I have a question to you.
Yes, sir.
Very commonly asked by authors, that how many tables and how many figures are allowed in a paper, in a research paper.
Okay, thank you. Very pertinent question, Dr. Amit. 5 to 7, total 5 to 7 figure and table is the general rule of thumb, because any original article will be of 7-page length, and the first page 7 to 9 page, and the first page doesn't contain figure or table. So remaining and last page usually doesn't have a table or figure. So then it goes that 5 to 7 figures or table, and one page should not have more than either one table or one figure.
Thank you, sir. In initial days when I started writing, if I can share, initial days, I used to think, how could I cover such an important finding into the 5 figures that has been given by the journal, instruction to author. And then later on, when you understand what are the things to be kept in result, then you will understand that how do I get 5 figures or 5 tables. In most of the research, 3 to 4 figures or tables is suffice to explain. So Mohan sir, thank you very much for explaining, so that the word or the graph and the figure, these are all to explain your result. You should not duplicate the words, graph and figures to reiterate your results. Thank you very much, Mohan sir. If there are no questions, any question from faculties? So if there are no questions, I have a lot of discussion.
There is a question in the chat box.
Yes, Deepak, please. What is that question?
There is a question in the chat box. It says that in result section, some articles use so many variables like p-value, odds ratio, confidence interval, etc. We need to help of statistician for this. Are they very important to mention in result? Mohan, would you like to address this question?
Okay, absolutely. That is your ultimate result, actually, whether the p-value is your whole idea is whether one form of treatment, one form of investigation is superior to another one. And by doing the hypothesis testing, you are either rejecting that hypothesis or failing to reject that hypothesis. So you are allowed to write the p-value in the one of the columns. Usually that is written in the end, last column. So that should be written.
Thank you, Mohan sir. I would also like to add my vision, because many people they say that we have to learn statistics. We have to understand statistics, but it's always better to involve statistician to do your analysis, put things into perfect way, put correct test for a correct type of data, so that your burden of analysis is shared by someone. So writing itself is a burden, and you start taking every burden, doing a research analysis, data analysis, putting on what are the statistical tool has to be used for that particular data. It puts you a lot of pressure. And if Mohan sir agrees that probably in the initial process of the research, if we can involve a statistician, it will be very much of help.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Sushil, for question. I would request Bimal Pandey sir to share his screen and talk about how he writes our discussion chapter.
Amit, is my slide visible?
Yes, sir. Visible and audible, sir. Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mohan sir, for describing everything about the results, and that made my job a little easier, because results and discussions are next to each other. So let me start. Research, how it goes. Introduction first, then method, then after that results, then discussion, then conclusion. This is the flow chart. that we all know. And today we'll be talking a little bit about a discussion, how to write, what to write, and what not to write. And every journal has its own type and style of putting up the discussions. So it's not moving. Let me share it again. Writing without meaning is worthless, and research writing without a proper discussion is like a novel with no ending and therefore no theme. This has been written, mentioned like this. So in discussion, what are the things, how we start discussion? First thing, what is discussion? That's an interpretation of your result. As Mohan sir clearly said that, don't interpret your results or data in your results section. Leave it for discussion. Just mention, just write what you see in your data. But to interpret it or the meaning of the data, you do it in discussion. And to compare your result with previous researcher, explanation of different or unexpected results that you are having in your study, then strength and limitation of your study, and then after future aspects. This is the flow chart. This is how you should arrange your talks or writing in discussion chapter. And interpretation of your result, how you do it. What does it mean? That's the meaning of your result. The result shows that some tables, some parameters are there, graphs are there, but what does it mean? It is written in discussion. You have to describe it. What does it mean? And it should be in simpler language than in result section. In result section, as Professor Mohan said that there could be this p-value, this and that, this odd ratio. These are, if everything is written in the result, but it has to be in simpler language. It should be explained in simple language. What does it mean is in discussion section. And how do you actual result compare with your expected? Sometimes your result might vary from what we expected, your hypothesis, and that you should write in discussion. And do not repeat all the details of results. What, as Mohan sir said that in results also, don't repeat what you have mentioned in table or chart. Only use one form. And in discussion, do not repeat all the results that you see, and do not repeat all the demographic parameters on boys this much, girl this much, this age of patient was there, this, that. Don't write these in discussion. And after that, this is in first paragraph. Then comes second paragraph. In second paragraph, what you do is compare your result with previous researches. Always. Again, my slide is not moving. Always compare result with previous researches. What is the known in this research area? That means you have conducted the study, but what has been known till the date? You have to compare that with your result that you do in second paragraph of your discussion. In first paragraph, just summarize or interpret your result, and in second paragraph, you compare your result with other findings or with previous research. Then after that,
विमल दाइ एकचोटि स्क्रिनमा क्लिक गरेर अनि डाउन एरो गर्नुभयो भने मुभ हुन्छ राइट.
then another explanation of different or unexpected result. When you do your study, there might be some different results that you might encounter, or sometimes unexpected result might come, which you hadn't expected before your study, and those things also should be mentioned in discussion in third paragraph. And after that, you have to Another, in fourth paragraph, there should be a strength and limitation of your study. You should be able to say the benefits and weakness of your study. What are the good points in your study? The sample size bigger, your study is good, it's a randomized, you have done double blinded, these things. The best thing or the good thing that in your study should be mentioned, what there was not in previous studies. But you have to mention your weaknesses as well. Because as Mohan said, sir, said, everyone here is learned. Everyone who reads your paper is learned. They will find out your limitation. That's why it will be better for you to express your weaknesses and limitation by yourself in your study. And that will carry a good marks to your study to be published. And another is future aspects. And in your discussion section, you should give some suggestion for further research. It could be for you as well, or it could be for other researchers to carry out further research. That means you have to give some clues, some ideas to carry out the research in later dates. And you have to mention the practical application of your result. Why your result is important? What the message, practical aspect is there? That should be in your discussion section. And the extension of the study also should be mentioned in your discussion section. And let's go to some example of the articles. This is the article that is published in British Journal of British Medical Journal. The title is Surgery for Type B Ankle Fracture Treatment. And here, this is the type 2 fracture of the ankle, lateral malleus fracture. And here, the objective of the study is, in this study involving patients with 44B1 ankle fracture, and he has gone for conservative and operative procedure. And the aim of the study, or the hypothesis of the study, is that the operative management might be better than conservative treatment. And this slide is elaborated, or expanded slide is from the last sentence of introduction. And always when you start writing discussion, you focus on the last paragraph or your introduction, where you have aims, what is the objective of your study or goal of your study, or you will mention your hypothesis there. And always in discussion, start with that. If you read the discussion here, the adult patient is from 18 to 65 years with an isolated type B ankle fracture with minimal talar shift. Surgical management was not superior to non-surgical management in terms of ankle function in 12 months of follow-up. This clearly shows that your outcome is there's no difference between surgical management and conservative management. Whereas your hypothesis was surgical management might be better. So here, as you said, that all the details of the result hasn't been written. In the result, if you see in this chart, there this in surgical treatment, the value of something is 38, 39, 40, 42, 41. These are the parameters, both are similar. And you write this in table, you mention this in table. But when you interpret a table in result section, just mention p values. Was there any significant difference in these two groups or not? You write those in your result. But in discussion, then you summarize what is the meaning of this table. You write down it in discussion chapter, discussion. That's why discussion parameters should be short. What do you have found in your study? Just write it down there. And as I said here, the table, there are so many things. Don't write all these things in discussion. It should be short. This was in the first paragraph. Then in second paragraph, there should be a comparison with other studies. Now you compare your study with other findings. the studies that was previously done. If you want to prove something new, then you write down that, okay, my finding is this, my result is this, and previous results were those. That you have to write, that you have to mention in the second paragraph. And after that, in third paragraph, what you do is then strength and limitation. Always you write what are the good things in your study. What are the strength of your study? How good is it? It's a randomized or randomized control trial, double blinded, this, that. That is the strength of your study. And at the same time, you talk about the limitation of the studies as well. And this comes in the fourth paragraph. And then in the last paragraph, as you see in the study, although this study present 1 year result, further research could include further follow-up of the cohort to assess the longer term effect of surgical and non-surgical management of this and that. That means you have given, you have opened another field of research. That means you have given another the sequence of another step of the research that can be carried out by you or someone else who is interested in carrying out the research. This is how you write discussion chapter. And some of the article would like to write down the conclusion in discussion, and some of the articles, some of the journal would like to write at I think many of the journal would like to write mention your conclusions separately. Let's go to another article. That's this is ACL reconstruction delay in pediatric and adolescent patient is associated with a progressive increased risk of medial meniscal tear. If you do delay in your ACL reconstruction, there will be medial meniscal tear. This is the main motto of this journal. And what's the discussion? How to write down the discussion? If you see the result here, the table graph is there. What does the table mean? There's some A's are there. This is risk ratio of meniscal tear. Medial meniscal, lateral meniscal, meniscus tear. The ratio risk is little higher than the percentage is higher, and sex male versus female in medial, males versus female, there's no difference. But in lateral meniscal injury, males are predominantly has lateral meniscal injury more than female. These are things that you see in your result, and this is the interpretation of the result. That means that this is the result. It said that age was associated with an increase of lateral meniscal tear, but not medial meniscal tear. BMI was not associated with an increased risk of medial or lateral or any meniscal tear. Male sex was associated with an increase of lateral meniscal tear that you see over here, but not medial meniscal tear. This is the result. And if you see the graph here down, what does it mean? Graph, it's each week of delay from injury to the surgical procedure was associated with 2% increased risk of medial meniscal tear. The risk of meniscal tear increases when time passes weeks. And by the time of 10 weeks, the 20% or 22% of the meniscal tear occurs if it is not repaired. This result is said. The result shows that. But in discussion, this is the last paragraph of introduction where it was mentioned the primary purpose of this retrospective cohort study was to determine the risk of meniscal injury with a delay form of ACL injury to the surgical procedure. We hypothesized that each week of delay to the surgical procedure would lead to an increased risk of medial meniscal injury. This was the last paragraph of introduction. Then when you start your discussion, take the consideration of this and symmetrical discussion to be started with like this. In this study, we found that pediatric patient in ACL tear had a significant increased risk of medial meniscal injury with a delay to the surgical procedure. Here it says that each week of delay result in 2% increase of the risk in the medial minuscule. This is the meaning of the result, interpretation of the result that you write in your discussion, not all the details of the result. Then in the second paragraph, as I said that in second paragraph, you compare your result with others. Here with other literature, what other literature says or other authors have found in their study. Always compare those. And if there is any difference, then explain why there is difference. Okay, let's see then in another picture, in another paragraph, he has said that our result improves on the existing literature. This improves because the sample size is more, and this has given the reason why the result that in this study has a better outcome than others. Then all described here, and that should be done in this paragraph. Then another paragraph, always you have to mention about your weaknesses, limitations of the study. And here, in this paragraph, you can see very clearly they have mentioned about the limitation. There were limitations to this study. First limitation, this, and after that, sorry. This is the first limitation that he had. After that, there's a second limitation. This was another limitation, and third limitations are there. Always don't be ashamed of hiding your or expressing your limitations, because if you don't write your limitations, another learned man will find out the limitation in your study. That's why always try to find out all your limitations and always express your limitations there. And if you look at this journal, this has in conclusion, that's a conclusion is in discussion part. That's why always you look at the journal, as Mohan sir said, that every journal has its own rule and regulation and style of writing. And go through the article of the journal that you want to publish in, and you see how it's written. That's why if you want to publish in JBJS, in this, here they prefer in conclusion, the conclusion in discussion chapter. If it is that, then you have to write in that way. So I would like to conclude that the discussion, what are the things that we should write in discussion? Number one, first paragraph, again, I'm repeating, first paragraph, interpretation of your study. Tell the reader what is the result, what does it mean. Then and second paragraph, compare your results with previous researchers. Then another explanation of different or unexpected result. You have to explain why it is there. And on fourth paragraph, strength and limitation of your study. And in last paragraph, there's the future aspect. You should open the platform for further studies. This is how you should write discussion chapter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bimal Dai. I think there will be some questions. We'll take those questions in the discussion part. If you can stop share, and I will request Professor Baral to share his screen and talk about how to write result and acknowledgement. Sir, you are mute, sir. Baral sir, you are muted.
Good morning, all. My topic is how to write conclusion and knowledge acknowledgement section. I think this is the easiest component, easiest part in the research writing, and it will be shorter. And the authors and researchers should not be very much giving stress on it, but we have to have the certain criteria. so that our final research product would appear better one. And conclusion section, it appears in two places. One is in abstract section, and another is after discussion section. And it could be at the end of the discussion itself without the separate subsection like in IMRAD format. But in some journals, there will be a separate section after discussion. So it depends on the author's guideline in respective journal. So we have to see on that prior to submitting your research paper. You can see in the abstract section, there is a conclusion. So the abstract is the window that all authors and new researchers or reviewers may go into it. And the first time it would be the free part that we get it in any journal. And if you give impressive idea, impressive conclusion in abstract section, that would be better. And there's an increased tendency to go through the full article. So we have to be very careful in writing all abstract section, including conclusion. You can see another part, the discussion section is there, reference section is there. So in between it, there is a conclusion. At times, the conclusion section would be at the last paragraph of the discussion section. Now, what is the importance of conclusion section now? The last opportunity to make a good impression on readers. Okay, so if you give you a good impression, then readers will be reading your article, and your article will be searchable as well. You have to confidently state that research questions raised are fully answered in the conclusion section, and leaving the readers with a thought-provoking consideration, so that they will start their another research from new hypothesis that has been generated. So you can give the final impression of it, disregarding the details of the results. Now, conclusion is not a summary. Summary is a different thing. It should be coherent with the title and objective, because sometimes we have tendency to write everything there in the conclusion, so that the people will feel that this is your conclusion, but in fact it will be generic, and that is not your research product. And conclusion drawn from your current study should be mentioned there, not the previous one, not the others one that has been already cited in your literature review, that is described in your discussion section. And no general understanding and facts to be mentioned there, that is already known, that is not your research project, that is not your conclusion. And important findings, both significant and not significant finding, should be mentioned there if it is important for your field of study. It means you should not hide your things, you should not hide your finding, because that may be more important for the further research to carry out. That has already been mentioned in the discussion section, but you can write one sentence for that. The conclusion section, you have to restate your research topic and purpose in brief, in a short sentence only, then summarize the main points. State the significant result. What are the significance of the results from your study? And conclude your thoughts based on the results. Like recommendation, you can give some recommendation, like we can do further research based on this result, because this is the new hypothesis generated from it. Or you might have accepted your hypothesis, or you could not accept it. You have to mention that. That would be easier for the researchers. Like if there is a new hypothesis in descriptive study, you have to mention it. Or you have tested your hypothesis in an analytical study, and you can mention it. That would be better for the readers to have some take-home message from the conclusion section. So the structure would be: first sentence is the conclusion starter, 2 to 3 sentences for the summary of your main findings only, and concluded in a statement like recommendation or something you had some take-home message in the last one sentence. So it would be easier. That is the general structure only. You don't have to stick on it, but this is the general structure to format your conclusion section. Now, parts of the conclusion, that's an analytical study. You see, first part would be state whether or not you accept or reject your hypothesis. You mentioned this. And you include specific data or your specific evidence from your experiment to support it. Then mention if the problem or questions has been answered, the what based on your research question. And fourth is state further programs or statements that should be conducted. That is way forward from your research. What are the don'ts in conclusion section? That what should not be done, what should not be written. Don't write general understanding or already proven information that is not from your study itself. Because the people
बराल सर हजुरकोबाट नोइज आइरहेछ बाहिरबाट हैन हजुरकोबाट हो
यहाँबाट छैन नोइज बाहिरबाट आइरहेछ देयर इज नो नोइज इट्स क्वाइट
Oh, sir. You can continue now, sir.
Okay. And don't write any new information after your work. So the general principle of writing, research writing, is that whatever you write in the protocol, proposal, you have to write, you have to mention in your research paper. Whatever is research in the research, that should be in your proposal or in your objective. So don't write any new information out of your work. Don't share personal thoughts. Don't reach, because your research means you have to have some evidence from your research, not a personal thought. And don't restate each and all the details. You have body parts for that, because there are many segments like result, methods are there, introduction area, discussion area. You have mentioned everything there, so do not repeat everything. And don't write lousy words, but use concise language instead. So that would be easy take-home message for the readers. Don't use citation as it is not inference from others. Don't use, just provide a bland summary. Don't apologize. Never express concern about your research and your authority, or avoid the phrase, this is only my personal opinion, I don't know for sure. You do not use like this. And writing the first person is too informal and cannot be used in academic papers. Not I do, we do, not like that. This is the conclusion from my research. So that is the way to write it. And don't start at conclusion with the words in conclusion or in summary. You write summary, do not write in conclusion. That is waste word. So these are unnatural. They sound unnatural and unnecessary. And don't present any new argument, not details about a research topic, because it is already there. You have defined your research topic, you have defined your objective, and you have come with your result section. Now I go to the acknowledgement. This is another. Conclusion section is very structured, and it has to have some character for it as a research paper. But acknowledgement section is a very easy one. It will be very short, a bit longer, but it is very informal way. But there is certain criteria to write acknowledgement. The authors who are in authorship criteria, but those non-authors would be in acknowledgement. These are the authorship criteria. I don't have to go into the detail, but those non-authors, those who do not have eligibility to be authors, they are in acknowledgement section. The non-authors means those who do not meet authorship criteria. Those are non-authors. You have to be grateful to who have contributed for the scientific work in any means. And contributors like writing assistants, technical editing, language editing, proofreading, and those people who have assisted in those are contributors. You can acknowledge them. And reviewers, not peer reviewer, your reviewers, you might have sent to your colleagues to review it, whether it's right or wrong, whether it is good or not good, to submit it. Then they will give you some idea, some suggestion to further improve your write-up. And data analyzer, like biostatistician or statistician, they are acknowledged only, not in authorship. And logistics support, administrative support, or funding sources, that has to be written in acknowledgement section. there is some difference in research paper and thesis and project. In thesis and project, at the beginning, why you show your appreciation for the people who contributed your project, that is in the beginning. But in acknowledgement and research paper would be at the last. Research paper is an article, it will be at the end of the conclusion section, and authorship contribution by sometimes the acknowledgement would be in the form of authors, initials of the authors or co-authors, like the Mr. AB has contributed for the design and concept, CD has contributed for reviewing it, like that. These are also a type of, a kind of acknowledgement, but those people have already common authorship criteria, and we use their initials only. And non-author's contribution would be best highlighted there in acknowledgement section. Authors and co-authors, in fact, those are already mentioned in author section. Authors, like the authors are there are many co-authors, and they have given their affiliation there. So this is a kind of acknowledgement, but this is the authorship, not the acknowledgement. And how do you create an acknowledgement now? You may begin with the people who have contributed the most. Don't forget other people who helped you, and mention any financial aid that you receive. And place more personal thank you messages and emotional supports in the last part, especially in project and thesis, not in the research paper. Now, in acknowledgement, how do you write it? You see, I am deeply grateful to. These are more emotional terms, like I'm indebted to. I would particularly like to thank someone. I would like to express my gratitude to. I would like to express the deepest appreciation to. These are more emotional terms, and these are waste words. We do not write it in research paper. But we just write, we acknowledge someone for what? Like in concept, some statistical analysis or something else. Or I want to thank someone, ABCD, for some work. Just like this is the research paper acknowledgement. But in thesis and big projects, we write like this, but not in research paper. You see, in thesis, I would like to pay my special regards to, I used to show my gratitude. Those are the things that we write it. But in research paper, express appreciation in a concise manner and avoid strong emotional language. I acknowledge Mr. and Mrs. AB for design, CD for analysis, A for language, like that only, not those emotional language. There are some examples how to write in the research project. Like this research was supported, partially supported by, you write some name, who is there, who is the grant maker, who is the donor, and we thank our colleagues. Where are they from? We like write like that. These are the way how to write acknowledgement in big research. We thank some people, like a surname or title, and for assistant, what is the what assistance they have provided, and their comments or whatever is there. You write like that. This is the way how to write it. And we'd like to show our gratitude to someone, like that. And you can write it there. If you have given your colleague has assisted you for reviewing, not peer reviewing, then you can write that. But we usually do not write in research paper in detail, write few things only. So we have to differentiate whether this is my research article, whether this is a thesis dissertation, or whether it is my big project. Research reported in this publication or this presentation was supported by, write the name if they are financed you, under what award number, like you have been awarded with some sum to carry out your result, like you have received some grant, you write like that. Like this research is supported by, like let's say it's supported by the University Grant Commission, UGC, which reference number and under which clause, you can write that. So these are the things how to write acknowledgement section in your if it is a funded project or funded research. So you see author contribution, acknowledgement, you see author contribution is written there. CS is for someone who was like these are the initials for their contribution in the research paper. You can see acknowledgement. Funding was provided by the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health. This is like this. This is the way to cite for acknowledgement. So that's all about my acknowledgement and conclusion section. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gerhard Baral sir, for a very lucid and sweet presentation on how to write result and acknowledgement. May I request Dr. Naveen Kumar Kern to share his screen and present how to write abstract? And the time allocated for you is 15 minutes only. We are already running half an hour short.
Amit, my slide is visible and I am audible also?
Yes, Naveen, you are visible and audible.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Greetings from Viratnagar. I'm Dr. Naveen. First of all, I'd like to thank my friend, Professor Amit, and Nepal Orthopedic Association for the opportunity. My topic is how to write abstract. There is nothing to disclose pertaining to this presentation. Now, the learning objectives from the presentation will be what is abstract, in fact, then why is abstract important, different types of abstract, what are its requirements, how to achieve the quality in abstract, and analysis and suggestions. Whatever we write, whether we write as a busy clinician, case report and case series, most of the time we write, or we do retrospective studies, prospective studies, randomized controlled trial, systemic reviews, and meta-analysis. Whatever, after completion of our manuscript, there is a summary, the gist of everything. That is what is abstract, and that you are going to present anywhere. So the summary of your work you have done is basically the abstract. Why is it important? This is the only part of the paper seen when the readers perform search through the database like PubMed or any search. When you search for about that particular article, the abstract first things which come, and that is many times noted and read after the title. Published in various conference proceedings, whether you do a podium presentation or the poster presentation, finally what the things come from that conference will be the abstract. And many of the time, this is the material that is available for the invitation to the reviewer. How we read scientific paper? Whenever paper you see, first of all, you have an impression, of course, from the title, you know about it. Now you want to know detail about it, and from there, you know the abstract. Now in abstract, after reading the abstract, if you have a deep understanding and good interest, then you go for the contents, especially the introduction, discussion. And only you have a very much interest keen about that subject, then only go and read the whole entire paper. So from abstract, you got most of the things. Therefore, the value of the abstract is basically for majority of the readers, the paper does not exist beyond its abstract. Abstract is also used as the advertisement. It's like a basically trailer of the movie. You put in the 2 or 5 minutes something over there, and that 2 and 5 minutes you impress the audience or the readers so much, you seduce them that they will pay and go and read whole of the movie of around 2.5 to 3 hours. So this is as advertisement. Your abstracts will be such that whenever reader read it, they go and read whole of the paper. It is also his opportunity to reach the audience, what type of audience you have written the abstract about. So there are certain requirements for the abstract. It has to be give the appropriate impression on the paper that you have written. It should be properly representative of the entire paper. Whatever thing you have done in your paper, that is representative over that abstract form, and it should have a general qualities. What are those qualities? It has to be condensed and concentrated version of the full text. Whole things we have written here, and it should be sufficiently representative, as detailed as possible. So you have to have a precise writing skill, file judgment, what is necessary and what is not. And it should contain as much information as you can write in the abstract. It must should present as a biased picture, because you are writing about certain paper and all the positive things only you are favorable outcome we are putting. So important, non-significant and adverse findings should also be mentioned in the abstract. To the extent possible, the reader should be able to independently evaluate the author conclusion by reading the abstract. There are broadly 2 types of abstract are there. One is the descriptive, another is the informative. Descriptive abstract, maximum word is only 100 words. It is basically you are introducing the subject to the reader. The reader come to about this, where their introduction and aim objective is mentioned. And if the reader want to know about the detail, then they have to go and see the whole of the paper. Another is the informative abstract, where the maximum words, depending on the different journal, 350 words, it serves as an overview of entire paper that is divided into the different sections. In the different sections, in the structured abstract is the background, methods, results, and conclusion. And in the unstructured, it will be given in a paragraph. First, I will talk about the unstructured abstract. One of the example here, you can see the different sections is not divided. Again, the word limitation is very limited here. So you have to be very careful. You have to, each and every sentence should give a maximum information. In that way, you have to write. One of the example I am just writing, my paper only, is the comparison between external fixation and the sliding screw in the management of trochanteric fracture of femur in Nepal. So the first sentence you see, I have written, we conducted a randomized controlled trial to compare the external fixation of trochanteric fracture of femur with a more costly option of the sliding hip screw. This single sentence is giving so many information. The study design, this is the randomized controlled trial. We are comparing the two different groups, external fixation and the sliding screw. Patients in both the groups should match for the age and gender. So in a way, I am telling that my randomization was successful. We excluded all the pathological fracture, patient presenting at more than a week, fracture with subtrochanteric extension or reverse oblique fracture, multiple fracture or bone and joint diseases that could interfere with the rehabilitation. Here I have told them about my inclusion as well as exclusion criteria. What are the patients I have excluded from that group? The interval between injury and operation, duration of surgery, amount of blood loss, length of the hospital stay, and the cost involved, all were significantly higher in the sliding hip screw. So one group I am showing the superiority, another compared to the another group. See the statistical part, I have just given a p-value. P-value is less than 0. So the all details of the statistical value should not be given in the abstract. Up to the p-value will suffice. The time to union, range of movement, mean Harris score, and the another knee score were comparable in both the groups at 6 months. The number of patients who show shortening and malrotation, see these are the negative findings. Also, you see pin track infection occurred in 18 patients. That's the 60% treated with external. So we also have to put some of the negative, all the positive things should only should not come there. You have to also put some negative findings that we have found over there. That is also of significant. Whereas there was a single case of wound infection in the sliding disc. So this is the just example I wanted to show that you have to be as concise as possible and try to give almost all the information you can put. Now, a structure abstract has a different heading. Here the word limit is relatively more. So you can divide it into the background, introduction, methods, result, and conclusion. Again, certain journal ask for that again to divide into objectives and purposes, limitation of the study, and the clinical relevance. If they have asking for that, then you have to put that also in your abstract. Another example of the structured abstract, you can see this is a prospective randomized control trial comparing proximal femur lane and sliding hip screw in the management of trochanteric fracture of femur. Here all headings are divided into the introduction, objective, method, results, and conclusion. And also journal is asking that you put some keywords. Again, keywords should not be too many keywords. If you put too many keywords, then the chances of jamming of if somebody is searching your paper, that there is a lot of keyword you put, then so many papers, thousand papers come. So you have to be very selective in putting your keywords. So whenever you are writing the background, it is basically to provide the reader with the background of your study. So two important things you have to know: what is known about the subject, number one, and what is not known about the subject. So there is a gap. So what is your study going to tell, intention to examine, and what you wanted to present. So you are filling that gap. So it has to be maximum, its shortest part of the abstract, 2 to 3 sentences you have to write. Sometimes if you have a single sentence that this was the essential knowledge and I am going to fill this gap. If you put your background or introduction too longer, then there is a very less space for the more important things like results to be there. So avoid unnecessary content in the background. Then the next is the methods. Again, is the summary design of the whole study, information about what was done, how was done, very important, what you have done, and you have to be very precise. This is the second longest part of the abstract you put. So basically you have to mention about your research design, what was your inclusion criteria, what were the setting of the study, how the patient were sampled, sample size, then if the two different groups are there, which treatment were received by in the two different groups, what are the duration of the study, and primary outcome measure, and how that was defined. That has to be clearly mentioned in your abstract. Then come the result. We have just discussed from our senior Professor Mohan sir. He has very nicely described how to write in the manuscript, but here we are writing the summary. So the most important readers are interested was what was found. Is the main reason for the reading to learn about the finding. Most important part and the longest part of the stack. Nothing should compromise its range and qualities. As much detail about the finding as the journal word count permits, and usually packed with the data. But in the results, basically you talk about the number of the patient who completed the studies, what were the dropout, result of the analysis of the primary objectives, and the p-value most of the time in the abstract will suffice. Result of the analysis of the more important secondary objective, again extend along with the p-values, numerical information about the analysis, and important negative finding, if any. Finding that fail to support your hypothesis. That is also most of the time we want to hide that. So that is to be mentioned there. Data on important adverse event in addition to the data on efficacy. Then conclusion, just my previous Baral sir has very nicely described in the manuscript, but that we are here now putting as a summary. Most important take-home message that we have to mention. Very few precisely, but word sentences must be supported by result. It should not be mismatched between the result, what is there, and in conclusion is something else. So the primary take-home message you have to mention. The additional finding of importance. Sometimes you see you are just doing some research question is something one, and you came out with some different additional finding. So you have to put that also in your conclusion part. So this was observed. The future perspectives, especially for the basic research you are doing in the basic field, and what further future perspectives are there, and if possible, you also give opinion about the theoretical and practical implications of your importance of the finding you obtained. Some unnecessary and inappropriate content that should be avoided, the citation of references, detail about the routine procedure and assessment, whole surgical procedure we are describing, detail about the statistical method that I have used SPSS, I have used EP-info, that should not be mentioned, detail about the statistical criteria for a test and its degree of freedom. As I mentioned earlier also, most of the time, if you just mention p-value, that is more than enough, and socio-demographic details is not required in the abstract. Few observation, whatever is present in the abstract must also be present in the text. One of the study in a very high cited journal, they were saying that 70% of the paper was like that. That's in the abstract, you are giving some one information, but in the inside the manuscript, there was another information. So that there should not be mismatch. Whatever error should not be made in the text that we are learning from the previous webinar, from the introduction, then the material methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. So whatever error you are not supposed to do inside should not be made in the abstract form also. Author enthusiasm or bias can influence the reader, because the readers trust the author. Whatever information you are going to give, that the reader is going to trust. So you should avoid unjustified speculation. Few suggestions. Most journals provide clear instruction to the formatting about the content. So you follow that instruction very carefully, because if you have not followed, and most of the time there will be the desk rejection, they will just outrightly reject your paper, and tailor your abstract according to that suggestion. Use abstract of important paper as a model of learning, as described earlier, because that journal, if the particular journal you are going to publish, you go through that journal and see the other abstract already published in that journal, and you have a very good idea about how they have accepted the way abstract was written. That is one of the way of going to know the model of learning. And consider giving your abstract to the colleague working in a separate discipline. So he or she will give you the feedback. See, these are the things you have missing, and these are the things you have overwritten. So try to correct that. So that will improve your quality of abstract. Finally, the take-home message: write the paper first. Very important. As the abstract is coming the first on the paper, but it has to be written in the last. You complete the paper first. Abstract is concise summary in the research, so you write it in the last. Introductory background information should lead to the statement of your aim. So once you complete your background introduction, that will followed by the aim you have to study. Briefly describe your methodology. Clearly describe the most important finding of your study. State the conclusion concisely and avoid overstatement. Remember and avoid unnecessary content in abstract. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Naveen. I will take questions when we will discuss. Thank you for summarizing the abstract very nicely. So may I request Dr. Deepak Shrestha to present on how to avoid plagiarism.
Am I audible and visible, my slides?
Yes, Deepak, visible and you are audible. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, once again. And this is the last lecture of all our previous series. And this is the one of the very important aspect of paper writing, and not only paper writing, in fact, the grant writing or the project writing and everything. Whatever you write in terms of the research, the plagiarism is very, very important to know. And you have to also understand the basic principles, how to avoid the plagiarism. Slides are not moving. So there is always a technical problem that slides are not moving. Okay. In fact, the word plagiarism is derived from the Latin word, the plagiarius. So the literal meaning of the plagiarius is the to kidnap. So in terms of our field, to steal the ideas from the others will be the plagiarism. So this is an example of the plagiarisms which was reported in one of the newspaper that the original article was published in Nepal Medical College Journal about the lipid dysfunction among the in the infertility women in one of the hospital in Kathmandu, and it was completely copied by the other authors and published in the other journal, Bali Medical Journal. So you can see in the yellow highlights that how many percentage of the previously written article has been copied and published in other author's name. So this is the one of the, the example of the plagiarisms that you have not only kidnapped, in fact, you have everything you have copied and pasted to your name, in your name, and published in other journals. So this is an example from our own country. The plagiarism is the one of the major scientific misconduct. So the three important major scientific misconducts are the falsification, fabrication, and the plagiarism. So we have to know everything about the plagiarism and to attempt everything to avoid the plagiarism. So you will be very surprised to see that the plagiarism is the major cause of the retraction of the articles in the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery of American edition from 1984 to 2016. They reviewed their reason for the article retraction, and it has been found that plagiarism is the most important and the major cause of the retraction of the article. And this is an example that how serious the gravity of the problem of the plagiarisms among the authors or among the researchers. So World Association of Medical Editors has tried to explain the meaning of the plagiarism, that it means the use of others' published and even unpublished ideas and words or any other intellectual property, for example, tables, figures, photograph, data, etc., without attribution to the permission, without attribution to or permission from the original source, and presenting them as a new or original rather than derived from the pre-existing source. These are the two very important issues in this definition or this explanation. One is without attribution to or permission from the original source, because you don't want to say that, okay, this is taken from this source or this idea I got from this author or this article. And second is you are presenting those informations as if it is your own, rather than saying that, no, this is not mine. This I derive from some other source. But this is two important aspects you have to understand about the explanation of plagiarism. There are various types of plagiarism. One is the complete plagiarism. The example which I showed in the beginning is also the one example of the complete plagiarism. And this is the most serious type of the plagiarism. This is something like that. You just changed the author's name and your institution name, and everything else is same. Again, I will give you an example from our own country. There is articles published in Annals of African Medical Journal from Nigeria. That is the dyslipidemia in type 2 diabetes mellitus patient in Niue, Southeast Nigeria. and the plagiarized article, if you look at the plagiarized article, everything in the abstract is copied except the study site and the authors. And if you look at this very busy slide, the introduction is here on the right side in the white background, and the plagiarized article is in your right side with the yellow highlight. So you can see in the introduction, everything is copied. In data, in table, both the tables are same in the original and the copied one. Discussion, everything is same. And even in the reference section, the number of references is same, and the reference articles are also same. So this is the height of the plagiarism, and this is called the complete plagiarism. And this is the most serious one. Another plagiarism type is the direct or verbatim plagiarism, also known as plagiarism of text. So what kind of plagiarism is this? Is that so you copy it and paste with some changes of the phrases or the sentences, and you have not used the quotation mark. So it's a one level less serious than the complete plagiarism, but this is also one kind of a serious plagiarism, except for changing these few words or few phrases, rest are same. As you can see in an example, the yellow highlight parts are everything is same, and the remaining 3 or 4 words has been changed. So this is the plagiarism of text or the direct plagiarism. Another form of is a mosaic plagiarism, and here you do not copy everything, but most of the things you have kept similar, but you have not given the reference or the citation or acknowledgement from where you have copied. So this is a kind of a patchy type of the plagiarism. Most common plagiarism is a paraphrasing plagiarism. So what people do in this plagiarism, they rephrase the words or the paragraphs without changing the original ideas or the concepts. Up to this is okay. But if you forget to cite the original research or the ideas, then this is called paraphrasing plagiarism. I will come into the subsequent slides that how we can avoid the plagiarism by paraphrasing itself. But if you forget to cite or mention the original resource, original source, then it will be called paraphrasing plagiarism. Another type of plagiarism is a duplication or the self-plagiarism. That is the reuse of work from your own previous studies and papers without citation. This can also have sometimes legal problems, especially when you have already described you have found some new surgical techniques and you have already published it. And in the second article also, without citing the surgical techniques, if you have written in such a way that you have reintroduced that surgical techniques in your second paper, then this is called a duplication of self-plagiarism. Another plagiarism is a repetitive research plagiarism. But it means repeating of the text from similar kind of a study with a similar methodology in a new study. And it often happens when studies are conducted in a similar topics or similar theme. For example, if you have studied the prevalence of vitamin D deficiency in Eastern Nepal hospital, so this is a kind of a study which is, we got it from one of the journal. And if some authors studied and published that how common is vitamin D deficiency in Western Nepal hospital, and then the third author studied that vitamin D deficiency in tertiary care hospital in Nepal, a prospective study. So more or less, all these 3 studies are based upon the same theme, and the methodology are also more or less same. So they are more likely to have a repetitive research plagiarism if they do not take care of while writing the articles. Another is accidental plagiarisms, and sometimes this is unintentional, and it can happen similar when the similar research are being done in 2 different places at the same time, and they published more or less within the same time zone or the time period. So they are more likely to have a accidental plagiarism. This is considered as a less serious plagiarism, but if you have noticed that there is a plagiarism between the 2 articles, you have to admit that and report it to the editor or the conscience authority that, okay, this kind of plagiarism have occurred if it is in the large amount. So these are the different types of the plagiarism, and according to the severity of the plagiarism, as I have said that The complete plagiarism is the most serious one, and followed by the verbatim and the mosaic. And the most common plagiarism is the paraphrasing. This is not very serious, but you have to understand that how to avoid these all kind of the plagiarism. Now let's go into the another part of the topic, that is how to avoid the plagiarism. It is almost impossible to write the paper with 100% originality, because there will be some words you have to use from the other articles or the other sources. There will be some sentences and as well as the phrases that you must have to use, you might have to use from the other sources. So main part of understanding about the plagiarism is, this is like a football game. Every player have to understand the rule of the football, and you have to avoid playing fouls. So you can apply same thing in our research also. Authors or the researchers need to understand the rule of the game and avoid playing the fouls. Now let's explain some steps or some techniques of avoid the plagiarism. Use of quotes. Any phrase, words or sentences in verbatim has to be kept into the quote. Quote can be the quotation marks. Most of the time we use it, quote and unquote. So if you use somebody's phrase, somebody's sentences, or somebody's reports within this quote and unquote, this will not consider as a copy, because you have said that, okay, I have taken from this source. Or if the sentences are long, if the words are more than 40, then you have to use the block quotes. So this is an example of using the block quotes. So you write the paragraph, and whatever you have taken from other source, you put into the block quotes. So meaning that you keep some spaces on your right side of your paragraph, and then you keep whatever you have taken from that articles. And according to the reference system, either you can keep the reference number or the publication year within the block quotes, or you can keep the citation number and you write that citation in your reference section. So this is a block quote. So another method of the most important method of avoiding plagiarism is a paraphrasing itself. But you have to understand, as I said in the beginning, the difference between the paraphrasing plagiarism and the paraphrasing. This is a very thin difference. If you change the words, if you change the phrases, if you change the structure of the sentence, that is a paraphrasing. But if you forget, or if you do not give a reference or citation to the original ideas or original sentences or original paragraph, then that will be called paraphrasing plagiarism. You have to understand the difference between the paraphrasing and paraphrasing plagiarism very clearly. So paraphrasing means expressing the meaning by using the different words to achieve greater clarity. And there are the 5 steps of paraphrasing. First, you have to read the original paragraph several times to understand the concept or the summary. You note down the key concept and write down in your own version in your own text without looking the original one. And then you compare your text and the original one, how much similarity have both of the text have. And if there is some similarity again, you try to change it. So these are the 5 steps of paraphrasing. If you have noticed in this slide, so I have kept these 5 steps with the some space on the right side. So this is again an example of the block quote. And I have taken these steps from the citations given at the bottom of the slide. So this is the block quote. So this will not consider as now the paraphrasing plagiarism. There are the certain softwares available for the paraphrasing that help you to change the words or change the sentence. For example, a Quillbot is the one of the software. And this is an example. So this is the free version that gives a very few facilities, but in the paid version or in the premium versions, you have lots of facilities, not only paraphrasing, again, the grammar check, summarization, or other function also. So this is an example. I had kept the sentence or the paragraph in the left side block, And once I asked for the paraphrasing, so it has changed certain words. For example, this is a paraphrasing of the title. Can peak systolic velocity in middle cerebral artery patients with severe traumatic brain injury portend a detrimental rise in intracranial pressure? So if you look at the other block, so it has changed this word portend into the predict, which is more simple and it's more meaningful than the portend. So this is not necessary. It is not necessary that you accept everything what has been advised or the recommended by the software. You can change the word again, you can remove it, you can reject it, or you can accept it. So there are many options in this software. Now, another very, very important is that the citation, whatever ideas or informations you have got from the previous sources, you have to cite it correctly. It may be ideas, it may be data, or as I've said that it may be photographs, it may be figure, it may be table, including the free internet resources or electronic resources. You have to cite it. If you are in doubt whether you need to cite it or not, better to cite it than to fall short. And in citation procedure, in citation steps also, you have to know the citation system requirement of that particular journal. It may be in Vancouver or APA, American Psychological Association. And if there are the knowledge are common, freely available, and it is found in numerous places, then probably you don't need to cite those informations. And one important mistakes that we often make it, we do not cite accurately the secondary source of information. When pulling the information from the secondary source, we also must cite the primary source. For example, if there is article A which says nailing is good, and if in article B, when they cite the article A, they will say that according to the article A, nailing is good. This is right. This is okay. But in the article C, if it says that nailing is good according to the article B, then it is wrong, because the article C must cite like a nailing is good according to article A. So besides citing the article B, which is the secondary source, article C also must cite the primary source, which is article A. So this is a right way of citing, because from the most of the systemic review or the meta-analysis, we take the conclusion, but if you are taking the information from the primary source, it's not enough to cite only the meta-analysis. You have to also cite the primary article. And you have to keep the effective notes on the sources and double check their accuracy before the submission. And one very important information or the knowledge sharing is that avoid citation from the predatory journals. Predatory journals is like a wolf with the cover of the sheep. You can't rely upon the information in the predatory journals, or you can rely upon even the reference of the predatory journals, and it will not give you the credit what you have done during your research or writing the article. So be aware of the predatory journals. Maintain the records of the sources. As I have said, you can use the software like a reference manager, Mendeley, or even the handwriting notes for the citation of the outside source. And the fifth step is using the plagiarism checker. And there are various paid and the free softwares are available. These are the many plagiarism checkers. iAuthenticate, Turnitins are the paid one, and some of them are the free software. The free software also give you the plagiarism service, but it may not be reliable at all the time. And there are certain issues of depositing your articles in the free software, because that free software will now use that deposited articles of you as their database. And when you again come back, they will compare with your own database, and they will show the high percentage of similarity. I'll give you a brief example of Turnitin. It identifies the material that matches the text from the documents found in the big database they have from the published articles or the thesis or the project research, and they will highlight the text which has been matched It is not necessary that all the matched text are the plagiarized. That is the author's now responsibility or the editor's responsibility to identify whether that is plagiarized or just a similar. And they will give a similarity score. And depending upon that, there are the criteria. Some of the journals accept up to 20%, but 10% is the similarity score, which is most commonly used or accepted. For example, this is an article submitted in one of the journal. Now I put these articles into the Turnitin software, and now you can see that it has shown the 24% similarity. So that means in this article, there is a 24% of the text which is similar to the other already published articles. And in the right side, you can see that how many articles have a similarity with this text and how many percentage also. For example, from the Ecta neurochirurgy surgery, it has a 1% similarity. And the number 6, which you have seen in the right side, you can see the 6 here also. So that means that the number 6, the color coded like a ash color, is from the Ecta neurochirurgy surgery, and the similarity of the text from this article or this journal is 1%. So this is an example. So the red one is from the Doppler ultrasound and so on. So if you look at the full articles, so there are the different colors and different numbers, and which denotes which articles or which journals it has been, the similarity. And overall report it gives, there is a 24% similarity index. Out of this 24, 15% are from the similarity are 15% from the internet sources, 22% from the publication sources, and these are all the journals or the articles from which it has been taken. The words, sentences, or phrases are taken, and these are the percentages on the right side. So this is how you get the report or the result from the Turnitin. The important part of the plagiarism checker is that you have to exclude certain portion. For example, if you put the reference section or the bibliography, the percentage of similarity will be very high because the article title will be same everywhere. So you have to exclude the bibliography or references. It will exclude the quotes. If you remember the steps of avoiding the plagiarisms, if you put the quote, then this will not include into your plagiarism checker. So almost I have come into the last few slides. You may be wondering that plagiarism is one of the important cause of the article retraction in orthopedics in JBJS American. There are the similar, not the very similar, but some articles which reports the plagiarism in our Nepalese articles also. This is from the Virat Journal of Health Science Journal. If you look at that, 63%, 48% have got a more than 20% plagiarisms in the articles submitted within the 2017 and 2018. And among them, the most of the articles submitted by the senior authors have plagiarism than the junior authors. So this may be one of the worrisome information for all of us, that even the senior authors, probably they are not aware of the plagiarism. So take home message is that plagiarism is a serious mistake. Be aware of potential plagiarism that can take place in your article. Use all possible methods to avoid plagiarism. Use of the technology and software is one of the options. An author or the researcher is a primary responsible to know and avoid the plagiarism. And I would like to again highlight and emphasize that author need to understand the rule of game and avoid the playing false. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Amit. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Deepak. If you can stop sharing, we'll go into the discussion section now. And then there are a lot of questions coming into the chat box. So I will take those questions one by one in the discussion section. So if I miss some question, Deepak can look into those chat box and take. So very quickly, because we are running short of time, we are already 20 minutes late, and I know that Mohan sir has to go for his another commitment. So I'll directly start with the discussion without any background. So At the very outset, I'll say that writing a research paper requires not only skill, but also understanding of the basic guidelines. And I'd like to disclose by saying that the example used in these sessions are questions collected from different seminars and presented here for learning purpose only. So this is one of the results I have copied from one of the paper that was submitted for publication. So I would request Mohan sir to just talk on the result, this part of the result. So what is your take on this result section submitted by an author, sir?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Amit, for the question. I think it is unnecessary use of the pie chart here, because in a two sentence, first two sentences you can the author could have expressed the idea here, and this is just occupying the space of the research paper page. So probably this was not necessary.
Thank you, Mohan sir. So why I put this very simple slide is because most of the time the author have tendency to come up with a very simple pie chart or very simple graph to emphasize what was the finding. But as Mohan sir clearly said, if you read the result, what was given above, is the same thing in the pie chart. So this pie chart could have been very well explained in the word, and one thing, and then the second thing is there is a duplication. So one thing that has been explained in the word is again shown in the pie chart, and this is one of the commonly made mistake in our journal. So, Mohan sir is laughing, but this is how the scenario has changed. So you agree, Mohan sir, that this is duplication? There are two errors. One is the duplication of the information,
yes,
in the word as well as in the pie chart, and this pie chart doesn't make any sense because this is more explained in words rather than the pie chart. That is what you were trying to say.
Yes.
Thank you, Mohan sir. I will go to you all again to just read on this table. Look at this table.
Yeah.
On your right side, and give some comment. This slide I have taken from Gaynath Baral sir's presentation. So how would you rate this table? What are the mistakes in this table?
His ranges for here. Okay. This figure 1 is this is given in a pie chart. Sorry, this is in a bar graph. 20, 30, 40, 50,
sir,
60.
If I would request you just to focus on the table, not on the figure,
table.
but in the table. Yes.
Okay. Sensitivity, diagnostic accuracy. Let me just put it. Diagnostic accuracy, RMA at quarter, sensitivity, RMA, accuracy. Table clue, sensitivity from versions and quarter three country based the quarter.
So maybe I'll just focus you that you said that this table or figure has to be standalone. So what you mean by standalone table or standalone figure, and what is lacking in this table, sir?
Exactly. Because of the time limit, I could not go in detail of how to construct a good table, but all other criteria seem to fail because this is the column heading is there, this side is the variables there. Table is always, the title is written on the left side on the top, that is there. But what do you mean by RM1? RMI1 is not explained anywhere in the legend. That should have been written here. And I think that is the only comment in this table. Otherwise, I must admit this table looks good. The explanation of this meaning is not there. That's
it's 10
only
hours.
comment I have.
So you mean to say that this table is not very much standalone, though table looks very well organized. Is not.
Yeah.
May I bring Dr. Gaynath Baral sir here, because this is his slide. So what are his comments, Baral sir?
Yes.
On the table only, sir. Let us, because we are running short of time. Yes.
Dr. Mohan has rightly mentioned that RMA should be explained there, but it depends whether you are submitting your article in a specialty journal or not. If you are submitting it in a specialty journal, RMA would be understandable for that specialty. But if our purpose is to communicate to everyone, then it's better to write the full form of RMI. Next is sample size as well. There is no N is written there, so we don't know how many cases were taken, but it seems the part of the table is copied here, so we don't know. We cannot comment completely. Only we can comment on the definition of the RMI, and the design part is there. The table heading is in the left side. It should be in the center. It is the not from error from the authors, but error from the designing part. Otherwise, it looks okay.
Thank you, Paral sir. So if you had to, redo this table, how would you have done it?
I would have made it risk of malignancy score, risk malignancy index for RMI, and I would have written N or a number sample size for this. And I would have written some note. There are different versions of MRI from 1 through 5.
Okay, sir. So you would have added the explanation of what are the abbreviation or the jargons that has been used in this table. So one thing that you did not mention and I noticed is this PPV and NPV. Although these are the very standard for most of the research, you would have explained what this PPV and NPV also means in the table.
That's okay for everyone, but whenever we have by the topic itself, title itself, we are not going to see the table only. Title is there. Then if it is the diagnostic accuracy is there, we have to know what is diagnostic accuracy. That is for the authors, for reviewers to know what it is. That's why we need some expertise to review it. But it would be better if we write the note. What is the full form of PPV and NPV? That would be better for everyone, because for the learners, beginners, it would be better in the note.
Amit, may I add something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deepak, you wanted to add something? Let us do it very quickly because we have
so regarding the result in the pie chart or the pie, usually it is not acceptable, which has been already described. And especially even the figure with even in the bar diagram, 3D picture or the pie diagram in 3D picture, they are also useless. So do not give the report or the results in your 3D picture or in the pie diagram. And regarding the table, when you have a comparison of different methods, I assume these are the different methods of the certain diagnostic accuracy of certain disease. So if you have a different techniques or the different methods, probably it is better to show in the figures. That will the visual perceptions of the different methods, it's much better than the numbers. So probably I would have put this sensitivity, specificity, positive predictive value and negative predictive value of this different RM1, RM2, RM3 in a figure so that readers can catch the difference very easily.
Okay, thank you. I like to keep one comment there. We have kept one table only, so we cannot comment completely whether it's appropriate or not. In the same article, there's ROC curve is there. That has not been presented there.
Okay.
So that is only for the table.
Okay. So yeah, thank you. I think it is not the aim was not to go into the very details of how this was, just to discuss about basic principle of table making, that if you are using certain abbreviation which is already mentioned in your text, but again you are using the same abbreviation in the table, you should not consider that this abbreviation is already mentioned in the text. That is why I'll not explain what this abbreviation means. So probably it is worth explaining what this abbreviation means. In this case, NPV, PPV, RMI 1, 2, 3, 4. What does it mean? If it would have been mentioned under the table by certain marking, then this table would have been a standalone table. That was the purpose for putting this slide into the discussion. Let me introduce a chain concept before going into the second one. The chain concept means that when we write a paper, the one component of a paper has to be linked with the another. So based upon objective, you design your methodology. Based upon the methodology, you will have your result and you discuss your result. You do not discuss whatever available. discuss your pertinent finding, and based upon discussion and your result, you come to a conclusion. So this is what I just wanted to introduce, a very interesting component, which is known as a chain concept. If we understand this chain concept, then writing will be little simpler, because you do not go haywire. So you have a guideline by which you are going to write your paper. So this is just an example of another paper. This is the title, epidemiological profile of anterior cruciate ligament injury in a tertiary referral center of trauma center of Nepal. So the aim of study was, this study aimed to understand the epidemiological and the demographic profile of ACL injured patient and evaluate the mode of injury. So my question again to Mohan sir is that, so even with the aims and objective, you know what result you are going to write, or you already know that what is the result is going to be. So which result should be discussed first, in your opinion, in the discussion section?
Okay, because we are not doing any analytical study, it seems here. So epidemiology and demographic is the all we are writing here. So I think we start with the epidemiology, age, sex, and the mode of injury are already there. I think it will be only couple of tables. The entire article will be. Okay. So the first I would start is, the number of patient. Is it a prospective or retrospective, Amit?
This was a retrospective study, sir.
So I think in the result section, I would write a paragraph how I acquired data. The detail of that will be in the materials and methods section. But a total of 75 patients were retrieved from the records. I'll write that. And of 3 years duration or 4 years duration of all patients with anterior cruciate ligament injury. And the second paragraph, I will directly start with the epidemiology.
Okay, thank you, sir. So may I bring here Bimal sir, who took the class of discussion. So Bimal sir, how would you start discussion? So there are basically few findings: age, sex, age group. Then you have finding mode of injury. Then you have findings of, say in result, there is from which region they present, the geographical. So how would you start? You have 3 results. So how would you start writing your introduction?
Discussion,
sir. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, in discussion, with the age of the patient or with the demographic data of the patient, and in first injury and the age of the patient, or the mechanism of injury at the age of the patient is, and after that, then in second paragraph, then the compare what other the literature or the other studies tells about it. In that way, I will go.
Okay. Thank you.
First of all, yeah.
Thank you, Bimal sir. That is what actually what I wanted to ask. That so you said that in one paragraph you reiterate the result interpretation. In the second paragraph, you said you compare and contrast. So if there are 3 results, so then how you write? You write interpretation of all the 3 results in one paragraph, then all the 3 results interpretation, or then compare all 3 results in another paragraph. That is what you suggest, or we can make one paragraph for one result in which you have everything, and then second paragraph for the second result where you have everything. What is your style of writing?
The aim of the study. What is the aim of the study? What the thing that the author want to prove or want to see? And according to that, as you said, that if there are multiple subgroups, then each paragraph should contain a particular group. That means and objective. What are the aims and objective you have? And according to that, you put on discussion. That's why always the introduction and last part of the introduction will guide you how you start the discussion. And don't go away from the aim of the study. What the pertinent, what exactly you want to say? Just discuss these matters.
Okay, thank you, Bimal sir. That was the reason why I put the last paragraph for your introduction will be the aims and objectives. That is why I put their aims and objectives. So I'll go to Naveen. Suppose Naveen, you are writing discussion of this title. So, and then I said that you have 3 results. What would be your approach of writing discussion? Sorry, yes.
Yes. First of all, whenever I am writing the discussion, the results it is, as you said, the change concept. So whatever result is there, 3 things you already said. So first of all, I would like to mention about the result I have obtained. At the same time, suppose my age group is, commonest age group is 20 to 30 I have found. But in another study, some different age group is there. So in that way, I can compare that my study has shown this age group and some another has this age group. And I will also would like to quote some reason why in this younger age group, in my setup, what is the terrain of my environment is like that or things like that. So in the same paragraph, if one thing I am discussing, there I compared with the another study of relevant, as well as why it is similar to the another study, then it is the same, or if it is different, at the same time I would like to mention this is the reason the result is different.
Okay, thank you, Naveen. I think my question is not very clear. That is why we all are saying same thing. But what I wanted to reiterate that if you have 3 results, out of these 3 results, some are very important results, some are relatively less result. So there are 2 ways of writing. So you start discussing your most important result first and less important results later, or you start writing your less important result first and then the most important result you keep it for the last. I'll go to Deepak, what is your take on that?
When I started knowing about the article writing, then nowadays I start with the most important result or the most important information at the first, and then followed subsequently by that order. That is the most important question in your aims and objective, and that is the most important information that I would like to start in discussion.
Thank you, Deepak. If Mohan sir wants to add something, otherwise we'll go to the next question. Mohan sir.
Yes, yeah, I concur, Dr. Deepak, with some some additional thing. It depends what your objective is. There are 2 ways you can write, either chronological order or in order of importance. If you are going to write demography, clinical profile, then what is the result of your like if it was the result of a treatment difference, then you go that way. But otherwise you can go topic wise also. So if whichever topic is more important according to your objective, then you go, and then you go that way. That's what I think.
I'll comment one.
Quickly.
For research paper, we go for the important result first and go onwards. In thesis and project, we go with the chronological order by its specific objectives.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So there was a question. There was a question. Yes.
Dr. Amit, may I say thank you so much for the opportunity. Unfortunately, I have to go to the exam. Would you allow me to leave?
Thank you very much, Mohan sir, and we'll wish you to be with us whenever we need next time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I really feel I should be here. Very lively program, but unfortunately I needed to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So there was a question on discussion part. Dr. Sushil Thapa asked. So Bimal sir, this question is to you in discussion section. Sometimes there are very few previous studies to compare with our study. Is there any recommendation number of studies to compare with ours? Quickly.
Actually, yeah, there's no fixed number of the articles that you should quote, but you can, because it's in Vancouver, it's phase, that's why you can collect few of the articles which are important and which are more similar to your work. That's more important than collecting the number of the articles.
the findings that that correlates with you are important than the number of the papers.
I think just to make it, yes, thank you, Bimal. Just to make it short, to Sushil answer is, there are sometimes when you don't have a paper to compare with, So even if you don't have paper to compare with, you say that there are no publication. You be just, fair enough to your discussion. If you don't find a paper to compare, you say that I didn't find a paper to compare, but this is the interpretation. I think that is the way to go. Next is excuse me. Next is sir, in discussion, Bimal sir again very emphasized about the limitation. So is it necessary to write limitation in all the papers, or it can be avoided?
Question to me, Amit?
Yes, Bimal, yes.
First of all, you should find out, you should appreciate your limitations. And then after that, definitely better to appreciate limitations by yourself than by the readers. That's why
so you mean to say that in quick, you will suggest our author to write the limitation in each and every paper, because there will be
exactly. Yeah.
Baral sir, what is your take on that? Do all papers should have limitation?
We do not have to explore limitation all the time. If there's limitation, we have to mention. If it is not significant, better not to mention it. If it doesn't signify, it doesn't increase your value of the result, research paper, you don't have to mention. But in most of the condition, research itself is the sample from sample size. It may not be representing all the time. So there could be some limitations. If it is important, then we have to mention it. We don't have to explore when is my limitation and I have to mention it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Naveen, what is your take on this? Do we need to write limitation in all our papers?
Whenever we are planning the study and things, so we'll try to whenever you are making the certain steps, so you try to avoid in the beginning only that at the end I don't have to write the limitations, that the number of sample size, the method you have used, everything. So try to fulfill that, should not leave any lacunae. In spite of doing everything also, and finally you came to something is missing, then only you write. Otherwise, not necessarily writing all the time limitation.
Okay, I'll come to Deepak. So if you see this limitation, one of our study's significant limitation was the small sample size. So now if you talk about any paper which is done in Nepal or abroad, Nepal in our subcontinent, all of these papers will have a smaller sample size. So what is your take on this, stating small sample size as a limitation?
So we few past experience in last few years. So most of our articles are converted from thesis of the student thesis, and they have a limited time and limited samples, and this first sentence always come as a limitation. Probably now this is a time to grow ourselves, that to increase the number, not only in the one center, maybe in the different center. So if you look at the second last center, there is a contrast between their study and their description. In the first line, he says, the author says there is a decrease in sample size, and the second last sentence said this is a high volume center. So in a high volume centers, you expect the large number of sample size, not the limitation of the sample size. So now I think this is a time to grow up, that it should not be our limitation, or sample size should not be our limitation.
Thank you very much, Deepak. It depends upon study to study, but if I have to summarize when to write limitations, so as Naveen said, understand your limitation right at the beginning of the research. Try to overcome those limitations. If limitation are there, please do write limitation by yourself rather than leaving it to someone to comment on your limitation. And as Baral sir was saying, that if there are no limitations, there is no need to dig out certain limitation and mention which are not relevant to your paper. So a limitation is a very integral part of our research, but it has to be taken by a pinch of salt. Okay, I will not go into this because there are a lot of paper pouring into the acknowledgement part. I would like to just emphasize on this: who should be acknowledged, and then Professor Baral clearly said that only those who have substantial contribution to the research process but do not qualify for author has to be acknowledged only. So this is okay. Let me go. Where is that? Okay, this is one example of acknowledgement. Professor Baral, you will dissect this acknowledgement. This has been taken from one paper.
And this, if it is a research paper, this is not good.
This is a research paper.
If it is a thesis and project, it's okay. In research paper, we give the scientific value only, scientific word only, not much of emotive languages. And we make it very concise. Thus, I would like to acknowledge and thank all my patients and patients party for trusting and having faith on me. We don't have to write everything. I acknowledge to my participants. That would be better, but that is not the contribution for your research because you are going to research on them. You don't have to write it in the research paper. This is for the thesis and project. My wife, Adriana, for something, it's useless because that is your life. That is not your research. This is not the research outcome. This is not the research. That is your life. You don't have to mention your life style, step of life in your research paper. And finally, Mr. Satish for digging out data from EMR system. That you can rephrase it. But he has Mr. Satish for acquisition of data. That you can mention it.
Thank you very much, Baral sir. There is one very common misunderstanding of many authors that each and every doing research, there are so many people who will contribute in some way or another way. So there is a tendency to write acknowledgement. My professor who helped me to decide this and that. But what we have to understand that this is not necessary. It is not necessary that all the articles should have an acknowledgement. Two concepts are change hunu parcha. Acknowledgement bhaneko those substantial contributors who were not eligible to become an author. हैन अघि बराल सरले भन्नु भएको थियो देखाउनु पनि भएको थियो मैले यहाँ राख्न चाहन्छु. So to become an author you have to fulfill all these 4 criteria. Suppose someone fulfill only 1 or 2 criteria or 3 criteria, they will go for acknowledgement. हैन सर हजुरले त्यो emphasize गर्नु.
Yes sir, yes. We have to fulfill all those 4 criteria to become author, otherwise it will be in the acknowledgement.
Okay, so one another common mistake that we have seen from many of our paper is this. Deepak, can you just look at these authorship and then can, as an editor, try to dissect what is this authorship?
So I can see the 2 reference from among the authors. One is from the Ulen School, Lalitpur, Nepal, and the one is the ophthalmologist from APF Hospital. So considering the title of the this article, I assume that these 2 authors, number 2 and number 3, will have a less contributions to the original research itself. So that is the information I can get, and certainly as an editor I will ask what is the contribution of these 2 authors, number 2 and number 3.
Thank you, Deepak. This is just a fabricated author. Meena Joshi is my wife and Sriyana is my daughter, who is 11-year-old, and then you see this kind of authorship these are called a gifted or whatever type of authorship is very common. And then probably we have to discourage. This is just out of stock. I put it here because of late we have been watching lots of paper who are coming with name of their wife and name of their brother, father, and so many so on so forth. So this is just an example. And then as Deepak very rightly said that nowadays editor will look into the affiliation of the authors. So some center and the ophthalmologist and the school, what are their contribution to this research paper? These are the questions will be asked in future. So coming to the, I'll just skip because there are lots of, I think Naveen very clearly mentioned about the structured and the descriptive abstract. So Naveen, how you decide? Naveen, if you can just elaborate how you decide which type of abstract to write.
So that is basically depending on the instruction to the author. In journal only, they ask that this type of abstract they accept. So according to entirely depending on the instruction to the author, I decide whether I go for a structure or on a descriptive abstract.
Absolutely. Thank you, Naveen, for a very brief answer that you do not decide what type of abstract you are going to write. It is the journal instruction to the authors. The journal decide which type of abstract has to be written. Now there are lots of questions pouring in regarding the ethics and the plagiarism. I'll go to one by one, and then we all will contribute very little. Okay, so first question was on plagiarism was, does it mean that when text is converted to bullets or numbers, there will be no plagiarism? Deepak, if you convert...
No, still it is a plagiarism. So it's not that changing into the bullets or into the numbers doesn't mean that it is no plagiarism. It's still a plagiarism.
So that will be so to avoid that plagiarism, you said that there is a method in which you design. So,
Yep.
but
if you want to paraphrase, then you have to change the sentence, words, or the the structure of the paragraph. And if you want to keep into the quotes, then quote unquote, and you have to still give a reference. So once you give a reference or the citation, then that will be not a plagiarism.
very true.
But simply changing into the bullets and numbers and without citation will be a plagiarism.
And also many people, they think that citing, putting a bullets and then citing is take them away from the plagiarism. It is also not true. So
it is also not true.
Yeah, it is not only citing. You have to paraphrase, rephrase, and then cite. Then it becomes your will take away plagiarism for you.
Yes.
There was another question from the same participant saying that how to screen predatory journals. I think I have removed that presentation, but we have discussed in our first lecture that what are the predatory journals. Deepak, you quickly say that just in 1 minute, quickly say what is predatory journal.
There are the different characteristic of the predatory journal. So one of the very obvious is that they will have a absolutely very attractive website, but you will not be able to know the editorial boards. They will keep the random name or the unrelated editors. So look at the editorial panels, look at the article processing steps, whether they follow it or not. If some journals ask for the money and their acceptance rate is very, very high and very, very quick, so within the weeks or within sometimes the days, they said that your article is accepted, and they do not provide you a feedback of the reviewer or very less feedback from the reviewer. So be careful that probably that is a predatory journal. Asking for money, the article processing time is very short, no reviewer feedback or very less reviewer feedback, and they accept very, 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 and sometimes they bargain it also. So if you ask that, okay, I cannot pay $200, then you will say, okay, then you pay $150. Then again, said I cannot pay, I'm from low and middle income countries. They will say, okay, $50. So these kinds of conversations are unusual, any unusual things from the publisher, from the journals, that makes you suspicious of the predatory journals. Be careful about that. And you ask some of your friends or some of the other, the researchers, authors who have published or who have submitted the articles in those journals. So take an experience of those and then make sure that that is not the predatory journals. And there are certain websites which list the potential predatory journals, but they are also not 100% proof.
Thank you, Deepak. For new author, it is always better to submit in the known or renowned journal so that you don't fall into the trap of predatory journal. So there was a question from Rosen Tambrakar. He's saying that if we do a similar study done elsewhere, this question goes to Bimal Pandey sir. So if we do a similar study done elsewhere, but write in our own style with citation from the original article, is it considered as a plagiarism? Bimal sir, what is your take on this?
Yeah, regarding actually what the study is, the same study can be done in two different populations, because to see how important is it to find out. This was giving the example that this vertebral body height in one group, a set of people in European people, or the size of pedicle in European people, and the same study if I want to conduct, if someone want to conduct it in Nepal, because the totally different type of group of people and the geography.
Bimal sir, you are muted. Please unmute yourself.
Right. I mean to say that if
Sir, can you be precise? You mean to say that you can do, but the same.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, we can do, but looking at the situation, how authentic is it? Does it make any difference in the result? If you think that the result might be different, then the study can be carried out.
Yeah, you can do, but how it can be a same number of sample size, because we have different population, you work in different setups, so you cannot have everything same. You take a paper, re-paraphrase and do your research. This cannot be done. It has to be conducted, but there are certain things that you have to take care of. That is what Bimal sir was trying to say. Thank you, Bimal sir. We'll go to next question, which is coming into the chat box. Subhas Regmi asks, sir, if I may add, we always tend to just compare with results of other paper, and we tend to ignore the level of evidence of that paper. So it would be better if you compare findings on the ground of level of evidence. So this was probably, he was trying to add on the discussion in compare and contrast. So when you are comparing, when you are contrasting, probably you have to look at the papers with which you are comparing. Baral sir, you want to add to this comment from Subhas?
The questions raised is more valid, because we cannot compare your finding to everyone. We have to judge what is the quality of that paper, what is the quality of that research finding. If that quality is not good, you don't have to compare with your result, so that your result would be minimized. So you have to see if it is the valid result, good research paper, then only you compare with that, not everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So that was very clear. So this question comes from Rajesh Kumar Chaudhary. He asked that is there a specific number of references needed for the original article? Does number of reference matter? Naveen, can you come in and just take this question?
So whatever the thing you have mentioned in the manuscript, the relevant reference is to be given there. Again, the number depends. Nowadays, if the very high impact journal you see, like Lancet and BMJ, they are now confined up to the 30. They do not accept if you give the number of references more than 30. So you try be as less as possible, but of course, whatever in manuscript, as many things you have written, that has to be mentioned there. But try to be short, not that maybe 50, 60 like that. So you have to be taking care of that.
Also, to answer the second part of his question, that there are certain journals which say that for original article, maximum 30 references, for a review article, maximum 100 references. Probably you have to go through, but it should not be under-referenced and it should not be over-referenced. For one point, say that, tibia nailing has a good outcome, you can have a 20 reference for that, but there is no need of referencing all those 20s, right, Naveen?
Yes.
That is what, thank you, Naveen. And then we'll go to the another question, which is asked that plagiarized is from single source or some from different sources. Percentage plagiarized is from single source or some from different sources. Deepak, can you understand what he was trying to ask?
Probably he's asking about that similarity index, which I have shown in my presentation. This is from all the journals, not from the single source. This is combination from the different sources. I think that is the answer of this question. Yeah.
So does the similarity percentage in various sections of the paper make some sense, like introduction?
Yes. Yeah. So there are the methods in the software that you can exclude certain section also. So you can compare except introduction, or you can compare the except the reference also. So more likely to have a similarity into the introduction, because that will give you, the common knowledge available in the platform. So they will have likely to have a more similarity, but the similarity should be less in methodology, results section, and there will again some similarity, increase in similarity in the discussion section. So methods and the results should have less similarity. So what you have to also understand that similarity does not always mean plagiarism. So that you have to read it as an author, you have to read it and make sure that, okay, this is copied or this is just the same sentence or the same phrases.
Thank you, Deepak. The final question to everyone is, what are the penalty or the legal aspect of plagiarism? I'll start from Deepak himself and then go to one by one. Quickly,
Yeah, there is a question of the legal obligation of the plagiarism also. This is not the issues of the legal obligation or the legal punishment. This is a moral or the ethical issues. So authors himself or herself have to understand that you are doing the unethical job. And the regarding the punishment, if you talk about the punishment, there can be a retraction of your article. There can be a, you can be blacklisted from the journal or the publisher, or you can be warned also, or you can be completely blacklisted. And the again, if you talk about the moral background, this will be in record forever. And whoever comes back again and then go through your article, there will be hearing that is that retracted or this person has been blacklisted. So this is a moral or the ethical obligation rather than the legal obligation. Legal obligation can be in the form of the contract with some companies. If you are doing the research with them, and if you have breached that contract, then that can be a legal obligation. Otherwise, this is moral and the ethical obligation.
Thank you, Deepak. So a plagiarized article which was identified after the publication will not be removed from the website. It will remain there with a highlighted point that this has been retracted because of this and this reason. So it will be a matter of embarrassment throughout your life. Going to Naveen, so what is your take on legal implication of plagiarism or scientific misconduct? Very quickly, one sentence.
Yeah, as Deepak said, first is the moral issue, because all the time you know everything, that you have just copied and pasted it. So first is the moral, and another, if it is blacklisted and kept all the time in the on-site, that is again humiliating. So better not to plagiarize as much as possible.
Thank you very much. Bimal sir, your final statement.
Yeah, I completely agree with whatever Deepak and Naveen said. I completely, though this is basically it's a moral issue.
Baral sir, Gainath sir, your final words.
Yes, this plagiarism is not legally binding, it is ethically and morally binding. So we do not go to the court for this, but there could be some action. I don't have to repeat retraction and rejection, but there would be academic action. Like if you are there, you are promoted with the plagiarized articles and all, the university or college may take action on that, and they may be may not be kept in certain positions or certain committees in the decision-making position. Those are the academic action only, not the legal one.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you everyone for being with us throughout this 4 month, talking about a very tedious task of the research and the scientific paper publication. So to have final words, I would again request, if our president sir is here, then I'll request him to give some final words.
Amit, president sir just left just about 5 minutes back. He has kept a message in chat box.
Okay, so Bimal Rai, can you give some final comments, and then we can just call it a day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, each and every faculties for their hard work to prepare this whole of the academical activities, and especially to Amit and his team for coming out with this very good concept where we can stimulate our young or orthopedic surgeons or basic clinicians who are not actually associated with the academical post to do some research, because research should be carried out throughout the life to get yourself updated and the people surrounding you to be updated with the recent advances and your finding, and they should be getting something from your experience. That's why all the faculties, all the doctors, all the specialists should have some research work that should be carried out throughout their life. And I'd like to thank all the faculties for spending their tedious, especially the time and tedious work and doing all the making these presentations and presenting and giving us remarkable things regarding this paper writing. And I'd like to say our scientific committee of Nepal Orthopedic Association, and even with stimulating our colleagues to conduct this study, because after attending this type of seminar, one will be excited. Okay, I then might think that I should carry on the research, but after a few days, keep on hammering them by doing these type of activities and providing this